Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first Inspirational Sofa session, facilitated by B2B, a community for and by freelancers. B2B brings different experts together in different communities. Today, we have people from our IT community, from the HR community, from the trainers community. So that's what's B2B about. We exchange knowledge, but also business. We are not just a Facebook group, we are more than that. We share more in-depth information. We are more a transformational network. My name is Anne de Bolpap. I'm the community lead for trainers, coaches, and L&D advisors. And this is the reason why we are here today, because every third Monday of the month, we share an inspirational sofa session. If you want to know more about our trainers community, feel free to put your name in the chat and then we will come back to you. We have also learning cafes and coffee corners and business coffee corners also there. You're free to join us. It's on other Mondays of the month. Voilà, but leave your name if you're interested. But today we are here for an inspirational sofa session. So the idea is every third Monday of the month, we hold an inspirational session with the comfort from our sofa. That's the idea. So it's better than watching TV because lately there is not too much to see on TV. So relax, take a drink. I saw some people had already a drink. Sit back and enjoy, especially today. Some practical agreements, and I go a little bit back to the analog, but so we put our mutes on. We put our camera off when Jef starts, just because normally we are with a lot of people today, so to be sure that we have connection. If you have questions, please send them through the chat, because we are interested in your thoughts. So your questions or advice or other remarks, please do that through the chat. We have Jeroen Warmenbol here. If you have IT questions or you have problems with the sound or the video, please contact through chat Jeroen. And for the rest, I also want to thank Veerle van Aken, who has helped us with the marketing. And also special thank to Peter Janssen, one of the B2B founders who was also here today. So maybe, Peter, you can raise your hand. Voilà. But the most important thing, today we are here for Jef Staes. Jef Staes, a full sofa session, 90 minutes. We will hear the stories from Jef Staes. Jef Staes is #1 TEDx speaker in Belgium. He's an authority in the future of learning, organization design, and innovation. I've seen him 10 years ago with a big vision, and I feel that this vision is now becoming a reality, and his thoughts are much more more opportune now than even before. So I hope you will enjoy the stories about the wild seas, the sheep, and the red monkeys. And we are here for 90 minutes of inspiration. As I explained before, the story is now more relevant than before. So therefore, I'm really proud to give the word to Jef.
Okay, so maybe first I would like to introduce me to some of you. Maybe some of you don't know me, but I've seen some familiar names from Patrick, etc. So the past is coming back. But I'm Jef Staes, and I'm broadcasting from the Abbey of Tongerlo, near Westerlo. What should I tell about me? I'm 64, so I should be on a pension almost, but I'm too passionate and eager to learn and do. So something about my profession: I'm an engineer from education. And then I became a software engineer. I worked 2 years in the States, in Arizona, and then I became responsible for project management, knowledge transfer from Siemens Germany to Belgium. I became a trainee manager. I really became passionate about learning. So I learned a lot about training and coaching from consultants, because I was an engineer, new job. So I learned a lot of new material from coaches and consultants. I was 6 years president of the VOV, an association of training and consultants. for 6 years. And then I was corporate learning officer for Siemens Belgium, and more responsible for change projects. And that's where I learned the most. That's where I learned that change is nearly impossible to do. So that I learned that it's very hard to start change projects. That I learned that we organize a lot of trainings and sessions, but nobody learns. So I started to doubt about everything in organizational development. That was in 2002 when I became independent. And then I started to write some books based on my experience and develop some concepts. So now it's 2020. God. So I'm already independent for 20 years. And the same things are happening. I don't see a lot of change happening. So if I see or I follow training consultants in the market and I compare it with 20 or 25 years ago, it's nearly the same. We only have technology added, but for the same thing, it's nearly the same. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you a story based on my experience about organizational development. And if everything is okay, then you should see my slides now. The title is Breaking Yesterday. Why? I'm going to tell you 3 stories about what is happening today. It's a kind of a canvas, and I'm trying to put my camera like this. So it's 3 stories about creative destruction. So we have to destroy things that have worked all the time, but are not good anymore today. And we have to create some new things. Now, it's a warning. I'm not responsible for any mental discomfort during or after the session. So this is the good point of having a webinar. Everybody can say in the middle of the webinar, bye, I'm going to have a talk with my family or see a movie. So, so it's up to you, but if you feel uncomfortable, don't stay until the end, just go. You'll be much more happy than staying. So 3 stories. And we also have some Q&A moments in the story. And the first thing is the question I've always asked myself, what is happening with the world? Because I think we are doing a lot of stuff from training and consultancy and IT, but I think it are the wrong things. Because if you're sick and you go to the doctor, the first thing we have to find out is what is wrong. And if you know what is wrong, then you can do something about it. And I have the feeling that we don't tell what is wrong. And I think a lot of people are afraid to tell what is wrong. So if we can't tell it and we don't understand it, we do the wrong things. So the first thing is, and this is the beginning of my story, I'm trying to create what I call a canvas to explain very easy what is happening. And I call this part of the story, Sweet 3D, the Battle of the Smarts. So just to explain you what is happening now. From my point of view, and remember, I started to work in 1979 in telecommunication. I did programming for the first digital telephone switches. So I really saw the growth and the explosion and the potential of the internet since 1979. And what I've seen is that when I started to work or when I studied, we were living in a time frame of information shortage. And what is information shortage? This is the moment you can't learn at home. Just remember that. Information shortage is you can't eat, you can't drink, but you can't learn at home because you don't have access to information. That's for me, information shortage. And if I look back to that time period, this was the time period when I was working in the company. We could have 10-year plans or 20 years plans. So we could predict 10, 15 years in advance what was going to happen. This time period I call 2D. Why? Just to give it a name. What is 2D? It means flat. It's like you're in a desert and you can see for miles, or you're on a still water, you can see for miles. So it's flat. We had some wars, we had Fukushima, but it was flat. What happened? And we saw it happening. We saw it happening in the 80s, in the 90s, in the beginning of 2000, but the amount of information was increasing. Not only the amount of information was increasing, but also the access of information was increasing. I think 15 years ago, we could do this kind of stuff with ISDN lines and satellite receivers. So, but now it's common good for everybody. So it would be imaginable 15 years ago that this could be possible. So we're not living anymore in a time period information shortage. We are living in a time frame of information luxury. This means you can learn at home. So everybody who is passionate can get access to information. Now, because of this access to information, what we also see that we see an increase in innovation, disruptive innovation. Think about cars, healthcare, whatever. So the amount of disruption in innovation is increasing. And the reason for that is, for me, is very clear, because more and more people have access to information. Now, this time frame I call 3D. What's in the name? Why 3D? Because we have these waves. That's another dimension. And these waves make it nearly impossible to see the future or to predict the future. A lot of people call this differently, but for me, in my canvas, it's 2D, flat, 3D, unpredictable chaos. But there is something else. And this is something we forget most of the time. I'm just going to clean my paper. We also have a lot of change from the past. This is what I call disruptive destruction powered by unintended consequences. We did a lot of things in the past which were not good. Just think about cars and pollution, think about politics, think about whatever. So we did a lot of things when we were young and the generation before us, and we multiplied it, we copied it. And what we see now is that this is a heritage. It's coming from the past, but it also adds to disruption and change. So what is happening is we have two things coming together. And this means that the power of the world is pure chaos. Just think about everything what is happening. COVID-19 is just a part of it, but there are so many things coming up which is really bad or good. So the world is changing because of two things: information explosion, innovation, and some bad stuff because we were not sustainable in the past. So we are experiencing what I call a switch DDA. The world has switched to another environment. But if we switch to another environment, this means that people are also switching. And this is what I see. We see two groups of people. One group of people I call the 2D smarts. And the 2D smarts were people who were very comfortable in the information shortage period. We got a function description, a salary increase, and went on a pension. These are the 2D smarts. And the 3D smarts are people like some of us who are passionate, learn every day. A lot of our children are that way, and they have adapted. They have adapted to a world that is in continuous disruption and change. And what is happening now is we are facing a battle between these two groups. So I've seen it happening while I was a training manager or corporate learning officer. These two groups today are really like the battle of the species, fighting for dominance. So if you think about that, what do we have to do? And that's what I explained before. We have to face what I call the switch drama. And the first drama is we have to leave the age of 2D smart. And I'm going to explain what I understand with 2D smarting. Sorry for the new words, but you have to find new words for new things. What is 2D smarting? Well, imagine that you were born in 56 like I was, and you had to go to work. But you can't go to work. if you're not able to do things. So we had to learn, but there was not information at home. There was only one place you can learn, and that is education. So our 2D educational system is born because of information shortage. And then we went to school. And then some people who were very 2D smart, they made all these courses. So all these colors are courses. So that's why we went to school. We went to school and we had to study all these courses. And that's the reason why the first thing they demanded from us was discipline. I remember it. Discipline. You have to listen. You have to repeat. You have to be able to repeat what's in these courses. But you don't need to be disciplined. You also need to be intelligent. And intelligent was you are able to copy. If you were able to copy, you were intelligent. I wasn't able to copy DT errors. I still make them. So because I wasn't able to copy that part of the courses, I couldn't become a surgeon, right? So discipline meant you had to study everything. So intelligence. And then in order to really prove it, you had to prove it with action that you really had copied it. And this was stages or the exams or whatever. And then as an end of this process, you get a diploma. So if I, as a person of 64 and 20 years ago, look back to this system, that's a copy machine. And the diploma is the proof of the quality of your copy. So if you have 80%, this means that you're a copy with 80% of the original. If you have 70, it's 70%. You couldn't have 110 or 100 because then you would be better than the original. And that's not possible because the teacher only can ask questions he knows the answers for. So what we basically did in a time period of information shortage, we went to school to become a copy. And then we went to work. So after this period, and this is a statement I'm making, it's still the same. In our current educational system, you don't get a degree based on passion and talents. You get a degree because you were able to study stuff which you didn't like to do. So I'm doing a lot of keynotes for education and students. Most students choose what they were going to study, not based on their passion and talent, but what they didn't want to study. And this is something completely different. Okay, so then we think, and I'm really happy that I was a training manager. I worked in HR for more than 10 years. But if you think that after education you go to work in a company and you can finally use your passion and talents, it's wrong. The first thing they give you is a function description, and then you got your yearly appraisal task. And in every yearly appraisal task is the same. They tell you this is good, and they will tell you what is not good. And then you will tell your boss it's not good because you don't have the passion and talent for it. And then he sends you to a course to do better what you don't like to do. And that's your training plan. It's still the same. And we train managers to do that okay, because if it's not okay, then the person is demotivated. It's still the same. We still can't organize work and tell people, this is your passion, this is your talent, choose within the company, within your passion and talent, what you like to do. You don't want to do that because then you become smarter than your boss, and your boss don't know how to handle it. So basically, what is the legacy of 2D learning and 2D working? It's the same, and we can have debates for that until tomorrow morning. But if you put fences around people, you get sheep. And I'm really grateful for the guy who came up with this quote, William White Knight. And I think he really was right. You got sheep with a diploma and a function description. And this is your workspace. This is your workspace because if you have a diploma, you can work there, but you're not allowed to work there because for that you need another diploma. And it's still like that. It's still like that. Okay. And this is then human resources management. which are not working with passion and talent. They are just trying to figure out how to get people with discipline and intelligence to the right boss. It's still the same. So if we think about that, it has a few unintended consequences. We didn't know. Now we know. And this is one of the first unintended consequences, and I really believe it. This is research by the Gallup Consultancy Group that make a statement that 80% of people going to work are not passionate about what they do. They are not passionate about evolution. They are just a copy that goes to work in a function description. Maybe they are motivated to do that, but they are not engaged. Only 20% is engaged. From these 80%, 60% just does their work, and 20% is actively disengaged. Now, if you can see this, if this is your corporate culture, and this is the result, and this has nothing to do with employee satisfaction, because you can make, it's cheap satisfaction. Okay, I can do a survey and ask, are you happy? And depending on the question, he says, yes, that's employee satisfaction. It's not engagement satisfaction. It's completely different. So when I was writing my books and Googling and having a lot of debates, I also added this thing. And this is something I really believe in. But because we are all in a kind of a copy mode, we are not originals anymore. And since we are not originals, we are only able to copy from the past. But the past has some heritage. And this is this. I think this whole 2D smarting is killing, is driving us to the edge of existence. So maybe I had to become 64 to really understand. But I think education, the organization of education and the organization of work is not only killing people, but it's killing our environment. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what is the solution? And I think we need a paradigm switch in how to organize learning and how to organize work. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. That's going to be the second story. But first you have to understand what, from my point of view, in this 3D age, are very valuable people. It took me a long time to find out. But now we are entering the age of what I call 3D smarting. And 3D smarting is a completely different mindset about learning and development and working. And it starts with me with this quote. I really think that real learning only happens when you're in the groove with your talents, with who you are. And I know a lot of people already thinking, again, a story about talents. Well, if you think then you don't know what's the potential of talents. But I'm going to try to explain it, and that's what I call 3D smarting. In 3D smarting, information is not in the top. In 3D smarting, talents are in the top. And talents is what I call diversity. It's what makes me and you. And everybody knows it. It's our destiny. If people ask me what is the destiny of life, it's finding out who you are and why you are here. And everybody knows it, that when you learn or work in your talents, you learn faster, you do it better, and it costs much less energy. You know it. Everybody knows it. So I think we have to accept that all of us have talents. And it's a very complex thing. You can't identify them because sometimes it's like talents are kind of spices. And it's not one spice that counts, but the combination. So basically, everybody is a cook and cooking with what he is best in. That's for me 3D smarting. So one question always remained in my head. And that question is, how do we know our talents? So people know that I do a lot of keynotes before COVID, something like 60, 70 a year, a lot of times in the Netherlands. A very interesting country to work with. And I remember I was doing a workshop, a conference about passion. And the person before me was really passionate about words. Where do they come from? And one of the words he was explaining was the word passion. And I was sitting in the audience. I was next speaker. I was sitting there and he said, does everybody know where the word passion is coming from? I didn't know at that time. And he said, passion is coming from pacho. It's an old word and it means suffering. So I didn't know. So he said, passion and suffering is the same. I said, Jesus. So if you say you're passionate, then at the same time, you say you are suffering. So if you're an athlete and you say, I'm passionate about running, then you can see it because he suffers, because he runs. You can't hide passion. If you're passionate in love, how do you know? You suffer. If you don't suffer, you're not passionate in love. So if you're passionate about what you do, you suffer. Why? You learn, you make errors, you make progress. So for me, I think 10 years ago, when I heard this guy's story, I said, you give me a piece of a puzzle which I couldn't find before. So I added it to my story. So passion is the suffering to do something. Now, keep that in mind. When I was a training manager and corporate learning officer, and people who know me, they still remember that. But if you are passionate, you want to suffer less. This is a contradiction. If I'm passionate about running, I'm passionate to suffer. Why? I want to get a goal. I want to accomplish something. How can I get better in what I do to create what I'm passionate in? That's learning. So learning is having access to information, and then you know new knowledge, skills, and even new attitudes. And this is the difference. In this time frame, in this 3D time frame, information is boom. There is no, it's not protected. Everybody with passion can jump into the information flow and learn. This was not possible when I was young, but now it's there. Okay. So keep in mind, passion to suffer, access to information. And then the next speaker in the same Congress was talking about motivation and feeling good. I can't remember the names, I have to find it. But she was a neurosurgeon, also in the Netherlands, in an hospital. And she was talking about dopamine, and everybody knows dopamine. So I was sitting there at the first keynote about passion. I did my keynote about red monkeys. And then we had this neurosurgeon who was talking about dopamine. And I said, Jesus, in the same day, I'm getting 3 answers for something, a quest where I've been looking for ages, the holy grail of motivation. And that's dopamine. So what happens if you're a person, imagine, just imagine, you're passionate about something you have a talent in. Finding that is gamification. That's another subject. We don't have the time for that. But imagine you're passionate about something you have a talent in. You're lucky. You tried a lot of stuff and suddenly, bingo. And then you start learning information. And then you're allowed to do something with it. So you improve. And your brain awards you with dopamine. Whoa! That's motivation. So finally, after so many years, I think I figured out the drive behind 3D Smarts. 3D Smarts, they learn in the groove with their talents and they keep finding it until they are. And while they are doing it and allowed to do it, they get dopamine, and they become passionate to get another goal. And the more I thought about it, that's how I work. That's how I'm still 64 and still going. But that's also the reason why a lot of people have a burnout or want to go on a pension, because they never got into the groove with who they are. Even as independent people, if you became independent to earn money, you don't get the story. So this is intrinsic motivation. It's coming from within. One of the best quotes I found was from Mark Twain. Now, you know, I Google a lot. It's like it's a continuous story, but one of the quotes was, the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Can you understand why 80% of people never find the second day? Because we have diplomas and function descriptions. And we are addicted to a system that makes sheep happy. And you imagine that? Can you imagine that there is another reality because you became addicted to your talents? Just imagine it. Okay. So the question we have to ask ourselves, and this is the dilemma which I'm facing, and that's the reason why I have a lot of discussions and debate. The whole world is facing this Darwin thing, not the battle of the species, but the battle of the smarts. And 2D smarts have their systems with their consultants and their trainers. And 3D smarts, they want other systems and other education and other division of work. And that's a battle. But something I try to understand, what is the impact of 3D smarting on learning? So I was already working in 1988 with online learning and knowledge management and communities of practice with Patrick, who was in there from you and I learning at that time. In 88, I was with an open learning center. In 96, we had a community platform. We didn't even talk about social media at that time. But there was one thing I've always asked myself, what is learning? So this could be a question for you, because B2B and what you do, you could be answering that. So the question is, what is learning? So this was something new for me. But suddenly I realized, after reading some books from Tony Buzan, that learning is a physical process. I never understood. So I started to Google and find out what learning is. So I'm going to tell you a secret. Learning is physical. So, and the amount of information is increasing. That's the information stored. And you can go to the store with apps or social skills. Because what we are doing now is the merger of technology, just a webinar, but we are also doing social skills, assertiveness, asking questions. So this is how you get to information. But what is really important is the information goes from there into your brain. That's what is new for me. I found that out in the beginning of the 90s. And I found a book in a library which shows us learning. So if you learn and you put your brain in a PET scanner, the brain lights up. Why does it light up? Because if you learn, new neural connections are built, and the brain uses oxygen because it needs oxygen to connect neurons with each other. Just keep it simple. That's learning. So it's physical. It happens in your brain and it doesn't hurt. But I also learned another lesson. That people not only learn when they have access to information, but people also learn when they teach, when they give answers, because the same thing happens. If you ask me a question, I have to think and give you an answer. But at the same time, new neural paths are making my brain, and the knowledge becomes more permanent. So learning is not learning, but learning is also giving. Now, I've learned that people who are passionate and talented, they like to give. They know it. They know that when they give, they learn. Do you know who doesn't give information? Not passionate or not talented people. Do you know how many there are? 80%. This is reality. That's the reason why people in organizations don't like to share what they know. So basically, what is learning? It's like inhaling and exhaling information. And what I'm going to show you now is something special. Some of you already seen it, but I'm still an engineer. I like gadgets. But I think 10 years ago, I bought a 3D printer. I hope everybody of you has a 3D printer. So what I did is I printed it. I printed it to explain people what is real learning. So you can draw this on the internet. It's just a 3D drawing program. You can order some LEDs in China, Banggood, €3, shipping inclusive. I don't know how they do it, but I will explain you what is learning. This is learning. Learning is happening when you inhale information and the brain lights up. And learning is also happening when you explain something. So what is a learning organization? It's easy. The light is on. Okay. So if you ask me what is a learning organization, you can explain. Can you imagine that in 80% of the organization, the lights is out, and maybe they have a good training program, and they have courses, and they send the sheep to the courses. And you know what happens with the sheep if he's sent to courses? It's out. Do you really think he does something after it? It's out. And basically, they have a good balance scorecard and the statistics are okay, but they are not learning. You really have to understand it. Imagine that you're going to do this in education, where students who are passionate are allowed to learn faster and can share. And this is one of the discussions we could have. This is my conclusion. We're not going to discuss it now. I still have to do one story, and then we have a Q&A, and then we have a last part. But what is my conclusion? And I know a lot of people don't like it. But if we can't change education or organization, so people with passion and talents have the freedom to accelerate learning, this means that if you have the passion and talent in a course to learn faster, go. And maybe you're finished in 2 months and somebody else in 10 months, so they will never understand it. You can use technology for that, a flipped classroom, whatever, it's all possible. And if you don't have the passion or talents, then you have to be able to choose something else. And my statement is very clear. If education or organizations don't allow this freedom, it's not a school or a company, it's a prison. So what I see today, how education is handling COVID, it's like a prison. They didn't learn. Our educational system is in the hands of 2D smarts, but not in the hands of 3D smarts. And the same thing is happening in companies with management style. So, story 1. Now I'm going to talk about story 2, and then we will have a moment for Q&A. Story 2 is the question about what is the impact of 3D smarting and 3D smarts on innovation. It also took me a long while to understand. It's like trying to figure out, while you're a training manager, corporate learning officer, and passionate about learning, what is happening. So the first thing I try to answer for myself is, what is innovation? It's very easy. So the first question I ask you is, what is happening with the world. 2D smarting or 3D smarting. What is learning? Okay. Now, if you really understand learning, what is innovation? It's our simple questions. So I came up with a very simple answer. So what I'm going to do now is explain to you what is innovation. Innovation is a circle. Innovation starts with information, and 3D smarts with a passion to build, to create. They jump into the information flow, and in the middle of the night, they wake up with an idea. Your brain wakes you up when you have an idea. This is much better than artificial intelligence. Can you imagine a system that wakes you up when it has an idea? Well, your brain has an idea. 3D smarts, they learn every day. They give every day. And while they are asleep, unconscious, their brain make connections and it wakes you up. You know what a sheep does? It's out. They are just afraid to go to work the next day. They're thinking about vacation. But 3D is smart. And do you know what happens when a 3D smart has an idea? He smells dopamine. He wants resources. So the first thing he does is he becomes an entrepreneur. He explains his idea. He goes to his boss. His boss doesn't understand, so he becomes an independent, or he does crowdsourcing or crowdfunding. You can't go to a bank, but that's not a business plan. That's an idea. The bank only gives you money when it works. That's the reason why a lot of ideas never are developed. Really good ideas. So what is a real entrepreneur? He goes for resources and money. So what happens is an idea, creative, entrepreneurship, that's innovation. And most of the ideas today are disruptive. They're really disruptive. So then it comes to the market, creative destruction, new products coming to the market, and then it's copied. And it becomes parts of the trends. And there is no speed limit anymore. This is happening. So this is accelerating and accelerating and accelerating, accelerating, accelerating. Every day it's happening. But this has an impact. And you can see it to everything today. Okay, it has an impact because the change never starts. Everybody is talking about that, but they make their own conclusions. I will go to that. The second thing is organizations in trouble. They don't know anymore what's going to handle. They don't see it anymore. Or education in trouble. They don't know what to do, so they're going to do better what they did before, but that's not the answer. That's the problem. 3D smarts in trouble because they don't have the passion and talent, nor access to information. And they all want to go on a pension. Global SOS, save our sheep. From today on, the mission of B2B is save our sheep. No, it's a joke. But the problem is, this is what happened. This is what I see. I really believe in it. This is the unintended consequence. The unintended consequence of diplomas, a function description, pension age. We are becoming a copy. We forgot the original. So the question is what we have to do. And this is the executive team. So if you ask me who is responsible for culture change, nobody else. This is the key. And this key doesn't work because they are thinking in 2D paradigms. That's the problem. So if your management team and CEO doesn't understand what I explained before, they can't change it. You can ask consultants and trainers, but it's palliative care. It won't help anything. That's my conclusion. It can smooth things and make sheep happy, but at the end, I don't think it's a solution. So the question we have to ask ourselves, what is the real challenge? Well, the real challenge today is after you understand what is happening in the world, what is 3D smarting, what is learning, what is innovation, we have to change our cultures. We have to change the culture from an organization which is easygoing to an organization that's built completely different. In our terms, we call it, we have to become engines of innovation. And in order to do that, we have to go to a very difficult period in search of balance. And what I see today, and I'm so happy I wrote all these books and had all these discussions and debates and did all these keynotes. But what I see today is that a lot of organizations understand that there is a challenge, but they want to do this better because they can't imagine this. Even I know a lot of people are working with self-directed teams, self-student teams. It's a solution from the past. This should have been implemented 20 years ago, but today we need another kind of management style. I'm not going to talk about that. That could be another topic. But what I see is organizations are just trying to survive this thing as long as possible, but not this thing. So I started to ask myself, what is the biggest problem? And I think I call it today the Swiss day fracture. It's like a fracture. I want to try to explain it. Our biggest challenge is not disruptive innovation. Our biggest challenge is disruption in employment. I'm going to say it again. Our biggest challenge is not disruptive innovation. It's disruption in employment. What you see there, the person, I think this is is a very nice picture, but it's a person who wakes up people who had to go to work. Because at that time, people were too poor to buy a watch. So this guy, just went to the windows of the bedrooms and he said, tick, 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 tick. And so people know they had to go to work. Disruption for him was when the watches became payable for everybody. Why? Because at that moment, he was without a job. It's a disruption of employment. You can understand that this is, but this thing is more complex. Everybody knows the talking movies and the silent movies. And I think you have to understand what happened. But when we had a technology, not for recording talking movies, but silent movies, we had stars in the movie industry, silent actors. They had the passion and talent to be a silent actor. They had stars on Broadway. I think they were the stars of Hollywood, silent actors. And then one invention, only one. We can record talking movies where voice and lips were recorded what we call lip synchronous. On the internet, we sometimes have a problem with that. It's called lag, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so suddenly we had a new technology. We can evoke talking movies, but we needed talking actors. Now the problem is, and that's the reason why I try to explain this as a problem, because everybody understands it. But everybody knows that if you're a silent actor and you want to be a talking actor, you have to be able to talk and sing. But if you don't have the passion or talent to sing, you have a problem. So this means that the disruption in technology causes a disruption in needed passion and talents. Understand what I'm talking about. You can't bridge that with training and development. That's the problem. And this is what is happening right now. Today we see an avalanche of fracture in deployment. So you can imagine if you have 400, if you have 400 talking silent actors, then maybe some of them are able to talk, but not all of them. So a lot of these silent actors have to go find another job. This is the problem. Okay, and this is the problem our companies have today. Our companies are not built, and not social security and not education is not built to do that. So as a company, you have to survive with 400 silent actors. And what you're going to do, a training program and the unions, etc., it won't work because you will always lose with another company that can hire 400 new actors with passion and talents to become a talking actor. This is the problem. I don't see a solution for that. I really don't see a solution for that. We are sending coaches to make it easier, but we are not addressing the real problem. Why? Because a lot of people with power today don't have the passion and talent to become the other guy. So it's self-preservation. It is. This is happening now. Do you really think that you have a garage with diesel, that you can convert these people who are working with oil, etc., to become maintainers of a Tesla with the cloud and everything else? No. So the problem is disruptive innovation is not the problem. It's the disruption of employment. And I'm going to give you another example. That's the reason why I like to do keynotes like this, because I have to be alert and have to find out new slides. What do you think the internet is doing today? It's a disruption in technology. We have the internet and we have the brain. That's the disruption. Well, this is disruption in employment. Employment in education, employment in HR, employment in IT, employment in everything. And still, we are not addressing this thing. So what I try to do is now, too many 2D experts and 2D managers and 2D executives have become incompetent suddenly, and it's not their fault. This is the drama. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not the silent actor its fault that he doesn't have the passion and talent to become a talking actor. It's not his fault. Sure, he should be respected, but you have to find another kind of employment system and educational system to address this problem. So we still have 35 minutes to go. So what I'm going to do now is, my conclusion is the ability and freedom to do fast, passion, talent-based recasting will be mandatory to survive as an organization. And as long as the CEO or the unions or education don't start acting on this, it will become worse. So I'm looking forward to your questions.
Oké, dan geef ik het woord aan Peter Jansen, die de vragen gaat stellen. We hadden zelf al eens nagedacht binnen de community. We kennen nu al een beetje langer. Dus voilà, Peter, ik geef het woord aan jou.
Thank you, Anne. First of all, I have already prepared one question for Jef. In the meanwhile, there are a lot of people here present. Please ask, if you have questions, put them on the chat. And I will pick at least one or two questions out of it to ask to Jef. First of all, Jef, yes? Jef,
yes. No, if I just want to say, if we don't have the time and people are sending in questions, I can give a video answer after the session. So if you collect and I think, this is really an interesting question, I have the passion to answer it, I make a video for that. Okay.
I have a first question for you, Jef. Suppose I am the CEO of a company where the light is on. You talked about organizations where the light is on or out. So I'm in the 20% of the companies where learning is on top of the minds. I let people work in their passion. So, but at the end, I'm as a CEO, I have goals, I have a strategy, I have stakeholders to keep happy. But of course, there are a lot of tasks that are maybe less popular to do. So I cannot let everyone do what they like. So
No.
what should I do as a CEO then?
Well, there is, it's a good question. I don't know if I'm going to answer it very well in a few minutes. But the first thing is that it all starts with management. Okay, we need another management style. So if I'm a manager and I have a vision or something to do, I have to find people who are passionate and talented in something I need. Okay, that's completely different than saying we have to allow people to do something what they are passionate and talented in. That's not it. If you have passion and talented, but within your company you don't have a market for that, then you have to find another company. So basically it means that managers have to have the freedom and the competence to hire people who are passionate and talented to do something they need. I think Scrum and Backlog fits this completely. Not Scrum how it is done now, but I call this 3D Scrum. So what I see today is that a lot of managers don't have the authority to do that, and HR doesn't support them. So the first thing is, if you want to have really challenging goals in 3D, your management style has to change, so managers are allowed to hire people for 1 hour or 2 hours based on their passion and talents. Now, the second question is, you can't find a match for everything you have to do with somebody who is passionate and talented. I agree with that, but that's not the question. The question is, if you as an organization succeed more in this than another organization, you will win. Okay, so it's not, and I understand what they're saying. I always get this reaction, you can't allow people to work in their passion and talents. That's not what I say. That's not what I say. Okay, but there are tricks to do that. But this is a longer answer. This is, how can you hire people who have to do things where you don't have to learn? They just have to be done. Well, I think you can do that. You just ask people who are not passionate and talented because of that, but you tell them, I will pay you a salary to do this so you can do your passion and talent in your free time. It's a balance. So because I really think that everybody has this need in dopamine. So how you do it, it doesn't matter. So we can talk about this for hours, but we're not going to do that. But it's a very interesting question, Peter.
Yeah, okay. Maybe a second question. I pick a question from Thierry, who is asking, how can a management team fight the past and at the same time shape today and shape tomorrow?
Well, this is the next story. I think it's a very good question, but that's the next story. I see a question from Levi, yes, which I just see it up. What have people to learn recasting? It's not in our education system yet. I just want to, I think there is one thing which is called gamification. You just have to find it out. I didn't know the meaning of that word also so many years ago. But there is, and it's coming from the game industry. But, and it's something everybody does, but we forget because our educational system and function description and salary. But imagine that you have children. I got 3 sons or whatever, right? But when they are very young, they come to you and they say, hey, Dad, I want to buy that game, a game. So you buy it. And then after 14 days, they say, I don't like to play the game. So what do we say? But you only do it 14 days, do it again, discipline. But what he's really saying is, I can't win, because that's our system. So our children, they buy a game or they do a sports, they have the passion to do it, they learn from everybody else, but at the end they don't like it anymore. Why? they don't see progression. They can't see wins. Why? They became passionate in something they don't have a talent in. It's like a natural system. It's like a natural selection, right? So what does a child do? He says, I want to play another game. So he plays another game and the same thing happens. And everybody who has children has the same thing. I say, he does a sport, he doesn't like to do it. Until something happens. And that's what I call magic. Until something happens, it means that your child is having fun and he gets motivated. And you know why? Because he does something where he has passion in, he learns, he's allowed to do it, and he wins, and he gets dopamine. And that's when he likes it. That's what we call gamification. And game producers for online games, they know that. So they know that they have to make the game difficult enough for passionate, talented people to make it exciting to get dopamine. If they make it too difficult, they don't play because they don't make the dopamine. If they make it too easy, they also don't play because they didn't get dopamine. This is what we call gamification. Now, imagine that you're a manager and you understand what is learning. You know what is really smarting. And you have challenges. You have a backlog of things to do. So what do you have to do? You have to try to find casting of people who have the passion and talent to do it. These are not sheep. And what I see today is that to become this manager, you need other passion and talents than before. It's the same thing that is happening with the silent actors and the talking actors. It's the same thing with management. The old managers, right, which are very good in 2D, they don't have the passion and talent to become the new manager. So what we do is we try to train them, but it won't work. And then we try self-directed teams. It won't work. The only way is a new generation of managers and teachers that knows the game and have the power and authority to play it. But now we can talk for that for hours, but I still have to do one story. So Peter, if you can collect it, just send it to us and we can do, is the sound still okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So I would like to do the third part, because otherwise, what time is it? It's 25. What do you think? Still one question?
Well,
It's
as
okay.
we see that we have a last question. It's also a change in mindset and changing the DNA of the organization. Yes, probably. Yeah. What are the biggest how should I call them? Roadblocks in the organization that hinder this kind of recast?
Well, I think I will take this answer with this question with me to the next part. I think the next part is of a kind of a solution for this problem. Okay, so it's a kind of a framework in how to do what I just said. But it's a framework, it isn't the solution. I will try to explain the solution itself also. Hey, but we only have 90 minutes. So if I can awake people in these 90 minutes, that's enough. So if after this session you say, God, I didn't know all this stuff, this changes all my things about organization development, it's okay. If you want solutions, that's something else. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we are really talking about healthcare in organization. So we did this thing, questions and etc. So the question we have to ask ourselves. So it was very hard for me to make a session of 90 minutes because I can talk about this subject for God, days after days after days. So the third part is how do you solve both the switch the fracture in employment, and how can you increase the disruptive innovation power of your organization? So I really think we have to reinvent innovation. And people who know me, I wrote my first book, My Organization is a Jungle, in 2007. So people sometimes ask me, why didn't you write another book? Well, I wrote a book in 2007, then my manager's hero in 2009, and then I was a sheep in 2011. And there is not one reason why I should write another book. They are still valid as they are in 2007. So I would say I've just written 3 books and just publish them again. So the reason is that people like to read books, but we have to do something. So in 2007, I wrote a solution. What I just explained to you was the challenge for the solution. So it took me more time to explain why we need Red Monkey Innovation Management than the solution itself. So what I'm going to try to explain now, and this is for me the foundation. It's a new mindset for culture change or whatever, but we have to create an organizational culture that embraces conflicts. So I try to explain that with the next picture. Imagine that we will talk about creativity in the sense of disruption. So it's not disruptive. This means that everybody says it's a good idea. It's disruptive. This means that a lot of people are going to say, I don't understand it, I'm against it. That's disruption. So if somebody came up with the talking movies, a lot of silent actors would say, I don't understand it and I'm against it. If talking about electrical cars, the same thing. Talking about vacuum cleaner without a bag, same thing. So what is disruption? Disruption is when somebody is against and you will have a conflict. Okay, this is about creativity. But innovation is creative entrepreneurship, so we have another conflict, and the conflict is what I call risk. So risk is the risk you are willing to take to invest in a creative idea. No risk means that I give you money and I will get my money back with a profit. Right? Risk means I give you money, I hope I'm a profit, but I'm not sure. So that's a risk. So I'm not an accountant. I don't know anything about EBIT. This is not my passion and talent, but it's always about the same thing. And what I've learned is that we are coming from organizational cultures, which are big companies or small companies, I don't care, which like 2D improvement. And 2D improvement means I got an idea, everybody understands and agrees, and we can calculate the return on investment. So all organizations are built for this paradigm. Okay, so, but this is not how you survive in 3D. In 3D, you survive because you have 3D smarts who come up with disruptive ideas, which is a conflict, and who needs resources, which is also a conflict. This is the future of organizations. It's 3D smart. Okay, so if you tell this to a CEO or his executive team, they are dead. They have the same questions. How can we survive? If we do this, we'd always have conflicts. So the question I always had is, how do you handle conflicts? So I remember when I was a training manager, and that, I think it was something in the 90s, beginning of the 90s, I always went to American Society Training Development, which is a conference in the States. And one of the talkers was, I believe, was Joel Barker. And he also inspired me. So if I look back to my career, I got inspired by a lot of people who always give me pieces of the puzzle, and then I create a new puzzle. And one of the stories is talked about the biodiversity in the jungle. So we asked his audience, where do you think the biodiversity in the jungle is coming from? And they didn't know. So he said, well, it's coming from the edge. So the biodiversity in the jungle, the different plants and animals, they originated at the edge. Now, this is we call this open innovation. But in the beginning of the 90s, we didn't have the word social networks or social conversation. We didn't have it. We just called it from the edge. We didn't have the word open innovation. Okay. So what he said was, well, you have to embrace the edge. And this story was in my head. So I was giving a keynote, a workshop about change and disruption, talking about conflicts. And I told this story. I said, well, if your organization wants to survive, you have to stop networking with people from the same ecosystem, which is 2D. Okay, so if HR wants to innovate, they have to stop working with HR. If it's open innovation, we can talk about this for another 2 days. So I was explaining that, and then suddenly in my head, that's how it happens, bing, I got this metaphor. So I told these people, well, imagine you have a brown monkey and you have a red fish from the ocean, and they start talking to each other. And imagine this guy is a person working in a company with vacuum cleaners. I just give the ideas now. And he's thinking about, how can we make other vacuum cleaners? And this guy is Dyson. And they start talking to each other. And Dyson says, I got this idea with cyclones, etc., etc. And they start talking. And this guy from the vacuum cleaner company said, whoa, that's a good idea. It's a vacuum cleaner without a bag. And that's what I call red monkey. So a red monkey is a disruptive idea around a product, or a product that is a service or whatever, I don't care. But a red monkey is a confrontational idea, and you know that this idea will disrupt the balance of power. You know it. That's a red monkey. So you know that if you throw it in the jungle, shit will happen. That's red monkey. So the brown monkey runs into the jungle of the company producing vacuum cleaners with a bag, and he says, I got an idea, a vacuum cleaner without a bag. Do you know what's going to happen? That. And it's killed by the red monkey hunters. I got another story about that, about the power defect. But this is happening. This has happened all the time. It happens also with me when I'm talking about competence playlist, power defect, 3D manager, whatever. You get shot by who? By people who are part of the old paradigm. They can't understand, they can't see it, and they see it as a threat. Now, this is killing organizations, especially in this time frame. So the question we have to ask yourself is, how are we going to solve this? And this is the question that has been in my head for 20 years, which we finally, I think we have a solution, a strategy to solve it. So I call it red monkey politics. So red monkey politics is the basic assumption that you have to agree, or you have to accept, that the moment you go into your organization with a red monkey, and I got plenty of red monkeys around me, your organization will split in 4. And the first is the creator. And the creator is the guy or the girl with the passion and talent. The passion to think about things, the talent to make the connections, the information to facilitate. And he said, I got an idea. That's the creator. And he has to be connected with, I call, the pioneers. And you know what the pioneers are? The pioneers are people who have the same passion and talents, but what they connect is they can see something in their head that isn't there yet. That's the secret. So a creator and a pioneer are a group of people. One person with the idea, and the pioneer says, I understand the idea, let's make it. Right. This is, I've learned that you have to, I've learned that in order to find pioneers, you have to share your ideas, because there aren't so many, because it's new, okay? So maybe that's part of open innovation. The second of the third group are the followers. The followers you recognize immediately. The follower always has the same question. Where does it already works? You know why? You can't imagine. He doesn't have the passion and talent to see it working in his head. He wants to see it in the reality, right? It's always the same. They want scientific proof. They want big data. But they are really telling other people, I don't have the passion and talent to understand what you're talking about. Just show me the figures. In education, these are the people who are going to Finland and Sweden, and they come back and they say how they do it over there. These are the people, these are the executives. They go into all conferences, and then they come back and they tell them what they've seen. There's a market for that. There are a lot of trend watchers just watching the trends, what happens, and show it to executives. But this is not innovation. This is copy behavior. And in 2D, it's okay, but in 3D, if you do copy behavior, you're too late. And the last group is what I call the settlers. And the settlers are people who are against. They kill it. They use their power to kill it. Why? Because if the idea works, they have a problem. Okay, so my thing is, if you want to be an expert in culture change or innovation, you have to accept this. If you don't accept this, you're not an expert in innovation, or you're not an expert in change. So you have to accept that based on my experience, disruptive innovation is a battlefield. And believe me, I've been in this battlefield and still am. Okay, it's a battlefield between creators and pioneers who most of the time don't have the resources, nor the power or authority, and they have a fight with the settlers and the followers, and most of the time they have the power and the authority and everything you can bring back to this thing. Okay, so the question we have to ask ourselves is, how do you handle it? Because innovation is basically the result of a disruptive idea or red monkey that has survived the conflict. So what is my conclusion for this thing? The first conclusion is never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. Maybe we should put in here B2B and the red monkey, that's merchandise. Too often, creators, because that's what we do, we share our ideas with the people because we get the dopamine. I got an idea. The dopamine is flowing through your system and you tell people and then it's shut. Okay, that's not what works. The second thing is, and this is something you have to learn, only start with believers. And so this is, if you have a disruptive idea, work with the people who come to you and say, this is a good idea. Don't put too much effort in convincing people, followers or settlers, to understand the idea. No. It takes too much time. You have to find people who want to become pioneers in your idea. Okay. And the last thing is you have to reinvent innovation. That's the point I want to make. And that's what I called Red Monkey Innovation Management. And that's an executive game. So I will try to explain it, why most organizations fail in disruptive innovation and why most organizations are not able to change their culture. Okay. So I really believe, and I'm just going to tell you about the idea, the vacuum cleaner without the bag. It's all about missioning. I say it again. If your company, you can compare your company with a jungle. It's all about the mission of the jungle. Nothing more than that. It's the mission of the jungle. And who is responsible for creating the mission? The CEO or the owner. That's where it starts. That's where creative entrepreneurship starts. The CEO, the owner, or the CEO as an owner, I don't care, is the mission. This is what I call 3D missioning. Imagine I'm the CEO of the vacuum cleaners with the bag. And Dyson comes to me with a red monkey, a vacuum cleaner with a bag. I, as a CEO with a mission, have some options. The first option is, are you crazy? A vacuum cleaner without a bag? Where is the dust going? I'm laughing with it. And I've seen a lot of people laughing with a lot of ideas. The second thing is, you tell to Dyson, a vacuum cleaner without a bag is a very good idea, but we earn money with vacuum cleaners with bags. So I pay you money and you shut up. This also happens. But you know what the most worst thing is that happens today in organizations? Conflict avoidance. Do you know what happens? I'm the CEO of this company with vacuum cleaner, that's Dyson. So I will tell to Dyson, I know it's a very confrontational idea. I don't want to have any conflicts. Please talk to the guy who is responsible for the vacuum cleaners with a bag. I will ask a coach, you have to find a consensus. After 2 weeks, they come back with a consensus, a vacuum cleaner with a little bag. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. But I, as a CEO, could also have another plan. I could say, well, I understand Dyson. The world is changing. We have other technologies. We have other trends. We have to create new products and services. So maybe I should change the mission from a vacuum cleaner with a bag to machines that get the dust away. You understand the little difference? Forget the vacuum cleaner with a bag, but create machines that take the dust away. And maybe you can even create vacuum cleaners to keep COVID away at home. Imagine, or whatever. I don't care what it is, it's happening. And then you tell the world, we are a company with a mission to get the dust away. And then you open a Red Monkey channel. And then your customers and students will give you the idea of the vacuum cleaner without the bag. And then you will say, you won't shoot it, but you will do the following thing. You will say, well, the vacuum cleaner with a bag, if you're a passionate and talented creator, let's find out if we can find passionate and talented pioneers to make it work. So what you're going to do is, you're going to start the call. That's how entrepreneurship works. HR has processes, and IT supports it, and finance supports it. They're going to say, we have an idea. Who has the passion and talent to make it work? And then somebody with a passion and talent without a degree, who learns every day, says, I have. You're part of the team. 2 hours every day for the next 3 months. That's 3D casting. 3D casting is the right people, but you need another kind of manager who is able to bring together this team. You need another kind of HR processes. Maybe you even need another kind of social security. You need another kind of learning. So you need a CEO who has the courage to not only promote disruption, but also start a change project to create another kind of an organization. And believe me, if I would find 10 organizations in Belgium with a CEO with the courage to do it, we become an innovative organization in next year. It has nothing to do with time. It has to do with courage and bringing the right people together. So once the vacuum cleaner with the bag works, because you brought together people with the right passion and talents, you're going to show it to who? To the followers. And you know what the followers are going to say? Wow, I couldn't imagine, but now I can see it. And they will become fans. And then you're going to show it to the settlers, the people who were always against it. Do you know what they're going to say? I was always against it, but I always believed in it. In Flemish, we call it zakkendraaiers. It's always the same. And then you have to do this fast. So you have to create an organizational culture with a mission, and creators and pioneers, followers in succession, and never give up. One product, another product, another product. So it's about continuous disruptive innovation and agile. And there is one thing I've learned from the so many. So you can't imagine what I told all of you in 90 minutes. But there is one thing I've learned. Consensus has to change into a respectful conflict model. And I added this stuff because one time I did a keynote for all the places of VDAB with Fonseroy, and I got all these reactions, and I said, I have to add another slide, and this is the slide. And you know what you have to do as a CEO? You have to demand respect. You have to have a mission, change your culture, but you have to demand respect. Creators and pioneers have to respect the settlers and the followers because of two reasons. The first reason is maybe next time you're a settler and a follower because you don't understand. It's situational. And if you don't respect the settlers and the followers, who is going to do it the moment it works? It's respect. But on the other hand, you're going to demand the settlers and the followers to respect the creators and the pioneers because of two reasons. The first reason, maybe next time you're a 3D smart with passion and talents and you have a red monkey and you don't like to have it shot. And if you don't respect creators and pioneers, you're going to be Nokia and you're going to be dead. And there is something I've learned, and maybe this is a lesson for trainers and coaches and consultants. You have to stop coaching people for change. You just have to create a culture where people are allowed to step in the moment they are ready, and you don't have any conflict. Conflict handling, the way we see it, is a relic from 2D thinking, where everybody at the same time had to do the same thing. This is killing organization. So again, I rest my case. If CEOs don't know it, forget it. Breakout, debate, questions. Okay, so we still got some minutes left. So, okie dokie.
Okay, thank you, Jef. It was really inspiring and also very clear.
I hope it was clear in 90 minutes, so it's...
Yeah, but therefore we also have the follow-up options. I didn't see a lot of questions coming in, but if you have questions, please leave them. We can answer them later, but maybe we can finalize with one question. So Jef, what is your advice for freelance learning and development advisors looking at your module? Can you give a short answer on that?
Well, maybe it's always a balance between income and passion and talents as an independent, right? So I understand. So I'm a little bit, because of my story, it's so confrontational. I couldn't, people have to take me as I am, okay? So it's Now in COVID, it's very difficult because there are no cleanouts, so it's but I can't go on a pension, so it's different. But it's a balance. So either you're an independent who goes to work as a sheep for the money, and I don't have a problem with that. So you're an independent and you go and work in the function description, you're paid, and you have a salary 750 euros a day, and you go to work. That's a personal decision. Okay, I can't decide that in somebody else. Sometimes I think by myself, Chef, why didn't you do that? I can't. It's not in my system. I need this flow. I need this dopamine. Okay. The other thing is, if you're an independent and you only want to work within your passion and talents, it's a risk. Okay, because the world isn't built yet for giving opportunities for people in their passion and talents. That's not how HR and that's not how assignments come in. Assignments come in based on discipline and intelligence. Okay, so I think as a 3D smart person, you still have to find the balance between these two. But that's a personal decision. The only thing I want to do is I want to create not a movement, but I want to create a network of 3D smarts to embed Red Monkey Innovation Management into organizations. But I know that the market is not big for that. But the same thing happens with electrical cars. So it's
okay. Thank you very much. And that's actually the reason why we also decided to give the chance to the people who are here today to follow a more in-depth program, to learn more about that. And maybe we can become the followers, maybe we can become the coaches to set this vision really into action. I'm going to share what we have until now. So you have the opportunity, and I hope you see the screen with the two options and see some thumbs up. So we have this session today, an inspirational sofa session. It was now especially for freelancers, trainers, coaches, and HR advisors, but freelancers. We have an extra session, the 25th of January, where you can bring your clients. Clients who you think they are ready for this kind of vision, for this kind of adventure. So feel free to bring some clients to our session on the 25th of January. And then for the freelancers who are really interested in to know more about this vision, we have a 6-week program, which is Jef Staes, a more in-depth program. In February, we start for freelance trainers, coaches, and HR advisors. And then you could become the coach for companies who want to challenge themselves and also go through the program. So that's where the fourth program will be more for corporate HR leaders in companies. So these are inspirational sessions, and then 2 more in-depth sessions to know more about the practical approach, how we can come to the point of a 3D smart organization. Voilà, and now I give the word to Peter Deen, also from the Red Monkey company, to give a little bit more explanation about the 6 weeks in-depth program.
Yes, thank you, Anne. As you can see here, it's a program in 10 steps. And what you've seen today are some highlights, some tastings of what we cover in depth in that program. It's a program around 6 stories, and we go through it in 10 steps. 6 stories about what Red Monkey Innovation Management is. It's about what's happening to the world, today's information, today's learning process, and the potential that's included in there. The reasons why organizations can't change, and how disruptive red monkeys into that big jungle can disrupt the world. And you've seen a few things today in that program in 6 teaching sessions, live sessions of 90 minutes. We go in depth, and in that program You have different tracks that you can follow. We have all the recordings on video, so you can preview it. You can view it afterwards. We have the teachings like today that Jef is doing in a live stream. And in the live stream, we also have a question and answer opportunity, more extended than we had today, where Jef is answering your questions. And the fourth learning stream is coaching sessions where we in little groups go in depth into the theory. We take examples, we do some surveys and games, and that's where you really capture the ideas behind it. And the whole idea we had, like unexplained, is that if you go through that program yourself first, then secondly, you will be able to coach, because you all have a lot of coaching capabilities. You're able to coach your clients through that program, and that will give you a much better connection and position within that customer. So you're very much invited to join us, and it's going into 4 steps, like Anne told you. And we hope to see a few of you soon with our clients. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. It was really clear. So I also want to thank Jef, Peter, for giving us this opportunity for this seminar, and also for the reduction in the classes. You can subscribe to this program on the B2B website, and we will send the links after this session by mail. So I want to thank you, all of you, of being here. Thank you for the remarks, the questions. If you want, you can share one last word in the chat. And otherwise, I want to wish you a very nice evening, and hopefully we see you next time.